Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slam Up Wrestling. Myself Supreet, and this is the AEW Dynamite review. And it was a night two of New Year's Smash, and I'm joined by Abhishek Aneja, aka Abby Maniac. What's up, Abby?
I'm absolutely fine, Supreet. How about you? How did you find this week's Dynamite?
You see, it was a taped show, so I will say it was decent at best because for me, tape shows they don't have the same energy like a live show. So
Mhm.
that's that. But what did you think about this week's show?
Uh, I also found it decent, not out of this world or something like that. With even in comparison to last week's show, I would say that this was you know a step down, so to speak. But nonetheless, it was watchable, of course, and the main event was the highlight, you can say, of the this week's show. And on paper, that match was not, as amazing, but in execution, what all transpired basically, and so to speak, it felt and it transpired to the people also in a great way. So kudos to all the people who were involved in the TNT Championship bout. It was amazing.
So let's go through this card here. We had Eddie Kingston versus Pac. We have also had Inner Circle revealing their New Year's resolution. The Elite were in action. Britt Baker's waiting room debuted on Dynamite with special guest Cody Rhodes. Serena Deeb defended the NWA Women's Championship against Ty Conti, and of course, the main event was Darby Allin defending the TNT Championship against Brian Cage. But before that, if you're new to this channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for all notifications. We here in Slam Up Wrestling cover all pro wrestling related stuff, including reviews for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW Dynamite, and New Japan as well. So, one thing I liked about this show was we got promo packages for the big matches, like the matches that had months of build. For example, the upcoming match we're going to talk about Eddie Kingston and Pac, and also the main event for Brian Cage and Darby Allin. So let's start with Kingston and Pac. So match begins with Pac hitting a missile drop kick, Kingston to the outside, Pac with a corkscrew drive. Pac was dominating for the majority here. We saw the bunny getting involved at one point. Both men were exchanging strikes. We saw a big superplex from Pac, which got a 2 count. And at the end, it was Pac hitting the black arrow for the win, and that was it. Uh, I thought this match here, Pac versus Kingston, I thought it was going to be the blow up for this whole feud here. But it looks like after what I saw in the post match, they are heading towards some sort of big multi man tag match. But if we are talking about this match, the match was good. But what did you think about it?
The match was good, nothing extraordinary. And with regards to promo packages, yes, we have discussed about it at length in the past that yes, you should, put out promo packages to get the fans invested that what the fuck is happening, uh, you know, on your show and what is the storyline or what has happened previously because the new viewers who are just channel flipping and they just you know get on your channel so they could be invested and to your show and they can enjoy in a great way. So kudos to AEW for finally doing that, and I hope that it should be the norm in the coming weeks and in the future, of course. And with regards to this match, it was good, as I just said. And uh, the thing that you are saying that it could be a multi-man match, possibly in the future, yes, of course. it could possibly be with regards to all the people involved. And I am thinking that what would transpire from that dynamic, it could possibly be Pac versus Lance Archer first, possibly. And they might be stretching the match between Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston a bit more, possibly. That is what possibly they are thinking, that that could be possibly money match, or there is legit heat between the two people and they are a little different. They are people as individuals, so that could be prolonged. So that could possibly be that what the people there, the people who are involved in the creative of this story are thinking. And even Lucha Bros are now, when we saw what happened with regards to Elite and what happened, they are also involved there. So what all will transpire, we have to see in the future. And with regards to this match, as you just ran down that the timeline of this match, that Pac was controlling the match for an extended period in the initial part of the bout. Afterwards, Kingston took control with the help of his friends, that is Butcher, Bunny, and the Blade. And then Pac employed what he has in his arsenal, that is his strength, his athleticism, and his experience, of course, to take down his opponent. And Kingston has the experience, his old school brawling style, and his size, and of course, his experience also. Eddie Kingston's arm seemed to be bothering him. That was at one point the story of this match, and it bothered him quite a lot. I don't know if it is legit or it is just for the sake of the match, or possibly it is a legit injury that could possibly be writing him off uh, from television for a week or maybe month. He ate a lot of offense. Eddie Kingston, I'm talking about, no doubt. He looked uncomfortable at times in the ending moments of the bout. It was a competitive match between the two highly talented, highly skilled competitors, Pac and Eddie Kingston. At the end, Pac won with the Black Arrow. If he's a babyface, should we call it a Black Arrow?
At the end of the day, he's the bastard. So we should
Yes.
call it the Black Air.
All right. And even what happened post match with the brutalizer, it didn't look very baby face-ish what he did, nonetheless. Now, the post match, what happened?
So, like you said, Pac locks in the brutalizer on Kingston. So Blade and Butcher came in and they went face to face with the Lucha Bros. Lance Archer shows up as the heel team escapes. So Archer and Pac had little words for each other, and that's it. Maybe
He
we are
said,
getting,
hmm,
maybe we are getting that Archer and Pac somewhere down the line.
yes, and possibly soon. The last time they had an, you know, interaction, possibly in the ring, that was also concerning Eddie Kingston, and it had that feel that I want him first. I want to beat his ass first, possibly. And now Lance Archer, possibly, he was saying that we should be on the same page. He was saying something of the sort. So we have to wait and see, because with regards to Park as a individual and what he thinks and his character, he doesn't possibly, uh, do well with authority. So it is just a matter of time before he locks horns with Lance Archer. So it would be soon.
So up next we had Chuck Taylor versus Miro. So the stipulation here was if Chuck Taylor lost, so then he becomes a butler for Miro until the wedding between Penelope and Kip Sabian. So we get to this match here. Chuck was beating up Miro around the ring from the get-go. Sabian actually took out Orange Cassidy, and this got Chuck distracted as Miro capitalized. So at the end, we had Miro hitting the thrust kick, and the game over is applied for the win, and that was it. No surprise here. We predicted it last week that Miro is going to win, and only thing left to see if Trent shows up at the wedding or not. But what did you think about this entire match and the post-match stuff too?
It was, I guess, the match. It was perfect as per Miro's character. He could not have taken any more of the offense which he took from Chucky T. And he, when he took control of the action, he just made quick work of Chucky T with the thrust kick and the game over. So now it is now only the entertainment aspect and the storyline, that what they are going to do at the wedding, which is possibly at beach break, if I'm not wrong, or it
By the way,
is some,
when is beach break?
it is I guess February 3rd.
That's before Revolution, right?
In my opinion, yes.
Yes.
So and with regards to you saying that Trent uh, would be making an appearance, yes, he would be, because he is a part of this story. Even if he's injured, he would be making an appearance. They do not have to fight, such in a brutal way with regards to that story. Nonetheless, he can make an appearance for the sake of the storyline.
Yeah, it just hit me that you said that he doesn't have to be physical if he shows up at beach break. It just hit me that they said it last week that Trent is gonna be out for 5 months, I guess.
Mhm. So they are only using Orange Cassidy and Chucky T. They
Yes,
are on
maybe.
the other side. We have to wait and see. It could be that Trent could make a surprise appearance if he is not, medically cleared to compete in the ring, but he can make an appearance if it is possible.
So we had Pride Party and Matt Hardy, so they were being interviewed. Pride Party actually had problems with sharing their 30% with Matt Hardy. Matt says it's their fault that they should have read the contract first before signing it. Matt is pissed now and said he is the reason why people started caring about Pride Party. He said when he says jump, they should say how high, and that's how the segment ended. Uh, Inner Circle came out for their New Year's resolution. Before I go through this segment, anything you wanted to add on this Matt Hardy Pride Party deal?
Mm, it is good that they are progressing the character of Matt Hardy being a greedy bastard, basically, and now we are seeing the character progression on Dynamite, not on being the elite. So it is great, and now possibly soon we would be seeing the rather the dissension or whatever the character progression we are about to see on Dynamite in the ring. Of course, that Matt Hardy wants Private Party to be, quote unquote heels, that he wants that uh, they should not care about the crowd and pander to them. But will they budge, or will they just break away and not honor their contracts? To wait and see. And they also have a match next week, if I'm not wrong.
So they apparently are going against Matt Seidel and Top Flight, I guess.
Hmm. All right.
We have
So,
so we were talking about this inner circle New Year's resolution thing. So everyone started naming their New Year's resolution. So Jake Hager wants championships. MJF wants to strengthen his bond with the inner circle members. Ortiz wants to perfect his grandmother's recipe. And on the other hand, Jericho wants to hold tag team titles with MJF. So Santana interrupts and reminds Jericho that he and Ortiz were supposed to be the tag team in Inner Circle. So Guar also jumps in. He calls Jericho a tag team slut, and he wonders if he will form a tag team with Snoop Dogg next. Jericho then becomes the peacemaker, says, just like how Wardlow and Hager settle the differences, the rest of them should do the same. So we will be getting a three-way tag team match next week. So MJ with a few encouraging words and told all of them to throw it up. So Santana asked MJ why his hand is darker than his face. So there you go. We have a three-way next week involving all the inner circle members. And I actually want Santana and Ortiz to win because we know they have fallen since they have joined AEW. And winning next week, beating teams like Jericho and MJF and Guevara and Hager, it will be quote unquote a big tag team victory since honestly they haven't won any big match lately. So winning this match will make them rank higher as 2021 goes by. So what do you think about this situation?
yes, I would also agree with that. LAX or Santana and Ortiz, they if they win that, they are an underutilized team here in AEW. And with regards to what we saw also in the elite segment, which involves that Lucha Bros are also stepping up to the tag team champions. So it could possibly be that now LAX could also be joining the fray. So there is a high possibility that Santana and Ortiz might be winning next week. But with regards to storyline and what Chris Jericho and MJF, uh, their star power is, we would be expecting that Chris Jericho and MJF would be winning. There is no, you know, second thoughts about it. But what is, being the, spice of the season, so to speak, and what is happening, all around. So it could possibly be that LAX could be winning next week, and they could be, in line, or you can say gunning for the tag team championship, and as they should, because they were the, you know, premier tag team of Inner Circle. Santana
Uh,
was pissed, yes.
so up next we had an interview with Dark Order. So they talked about their future. They said they will. So anything they do in the future will be in the name of Brody Lee. So they They say that they'll start to be better people starting next week when Reynolds and Silver tag with Hangman Page. So Page is there. So Silver interviews Page saying he loves him. They all ask whether Page will join the Dark Order. Page said that he will give that answer after their match is done next week. So yeah, that's that.
Before that, there was an video package. There was a video package which, encapsulated the Darby Allin and Brian Cage, rivalry. That was brilliantly done. I would give, full marks and full, salute to the team of AEW for putting up that, because they, all the facets were covered nicely from the start to the finish. And it kind of, makes sense to that Sting, why is, Sting being a part of this feud and storyline and siding with, you know, Darby Allin
Uh,
is fitting. That it was said that Taz wasn't able to communicate with Darby at the start, and now with Sting being, he has the same, mindset. He a loner and airy kind of a character, so he understands Darby Allin's mindset, and he could understand him better, and he could mentor him a whole lot better than Taz, who was, a mat wrestler and a color commentator. So, you know, how they, encapsulated that whole timeline and this whole rivalry. It was a great video package. And now to the Young Bucks.
So the Bucks wanted to do their signature entrance with Omega, but Omega said it would be better if they came out. No, it was actually Callis who said that it would be better
Callis.
if they came out separate. Omega and Callis first come out, and Callis on the mic. It looked like he was about to introduce the Young Bucks, but actually it was a swerve as he introduced the Good Brothers. So the Bucks were not happy
The
as it
World
was
Tag
seen.
Team Champions, the Good Brothers.
So the Bucks were not happy with this, as it was shown in backstage. They were along with Tony Khan. He also had the same reaction. So it was actually the Young Bucks. Sorry, no, sorry, the Good Brothers and Omega versus Varsity Blondes and Danny Limelight, who apparently is one of the top independent names out there. So we get to this match. So the baby faces were made to look like no, they were not made to look like jobbers, as they got in their stuff, and at the end, it was a magic killer to Danny Limelight that got them the win, and that was it. So the main thing to take from this is that this war was actually good. Like we all expected that we were getting Young Bucks and Omega, like the usual stuff, but it was a good swerve. And one thing to note from last week's segment is that the Bucks they hesitated a little bit to do the two sweet. So
Yeah.
are we getting into the situation where we could see Young Bucks versus Good Brothers at Revolution or something?
Possibly. We can't say anything as to what could happen or might happen, or it is building up to, Young Bucks turning towards, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. You know, it is softening, because what happened post match, it could possibly be, you know, uh, softening them up towards that side. And the Impact Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, it was a great surprise that Gallows and Anderson were there. And I was also expecting them to be here, but I did not expect that in what fashion would they be here. I did not expect that they would be competing of all things. They would be competing instead of the Young Bucks. To my enjoyment. Uh, the real world champions, of course, the Good Brothers, who look like champions, who look like adults, who don't look like, Hardy Boys light. Young Bucks
Look,
should
looks
be.
like looks like someone has been watching The Experience lately.
You always get me. Uh, Young Bucks should be, they should get a hold of themselves that what the fuck are they? That are they wrestlers? Are they, tag team champions of AEW, or are they EVPs? Because the segment which with Tony Khan, which was shown, that gives us that they are EVPs and they are baby faces, of course. So uh, them siding with Kenny Omega and Good Brothers does not make sense because they are the enemy. They are from the other side, so to speak, right now. So, as to why they hesitated, as you said, correct. So now it would, you know, uh, ball into that they could be joining them, and they would say, "Fuck you, Tony," and then Tony Khan, and they would join their friends. So it could possibly happen, and it should possibly happen because giving us Good Brothers versus the Young Bucks, what the fuck? Adults versus high school kids. IWGP Tag Team Champions versus IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions. What the fuck? It,
But it's
it
not. But it is a scenario where it's not that predictable. The predictable scenario is the Young Bucks will be with Omega and the Good Brothers. If they're fighting against them, that's little unpredictable.
yes, it is unpredictable, but you have to build to that, not just give that right now. You can give that later on, possibly. That first they join in, they run around roughshod, uh, you know, in Impact Wrestling, in AEW. Young Bucks can fight off Impact Wrestling, tag teams such as Motor City Machine Guns, which they are possibly fighting. They can, make an appearance this pay-per-view that is hard to kill. That is very highly likely. They can. So we have to wait and see that what can and cannot happen. And then afterwards, that when there is a double cross and when it comes to the Young Bucks' tag team championship, and the Good Brothers want that championship, then you can have that double cross. Then the Young Bucks are, on the good side, or whatever side you want to call that. Then you can have that, but it should be a little, you know down the road, not right now. Right now you can do the Bullet Club shit, run roughshod in both the promotions. And what else did we have here? Bucks joined in reluctantly. You just said it, in the spirit of their. long-term friendship with Omega, and of course the Good Brothers also. Oh, sorry. And we saw, triple team maneuvers from the elite, from the new elite, which would have pissed, the fuck out of the young bucks. That, you know, Kenny Omega and we did such stuff. You know, what is happening? And Danny Limelight got a lot of offense in this match. He really shined with his tenacity and athleticism. Now, Brian Pillman Jr. is officially elite uh, for all the people who are watching us or are listening on the audio app. He has been stripped of the OVW Heavyweight Championship that he won from Tony Gunn. And he also got some offense in, but in the end, the Good Brothers got the victory, as you said, via the Magic Killer. And building positive momentum towards the pay-per-view Hard to Kill, where they are involved in trios action with Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann, who is the Impact Wrestling World Champion, and Motor City Machine Guns in the main event, which is also available on Fight.
Also, I just remembered this. Tony Schiavone actually buried Impact Wrestling again. He called the Hard to Kill pay-per-view something like Cannot Die, something like that. He actually buried the
Mhm.
pay-per-view name.
Mhm.
But let's get to this post-match angle. So we saw John Moxley coming out as he fought all three members, but it was a three-on-one situation. So out comes Lucha Bros for a little assist. A bunch of wrestlers came out to separate the two teams. So Moxley hits the paradigm shift on some dude and dives on the pile to the outside. He goes after Omega, but the Young Bucks came out to stop him. Lucha Bros then take out the Bucks with super kicks as Callis and Omega escaped. Utter chaos. So, um, so they have set up some stuff involving the Young Bucks, maybe some future matchups and stuff. I would have appreciated if John Moxley was not part of this show this week. Like he could have sold this beatdown he took last week, at least for 1 week.
They could have, but nonetheless, that is what AW and ratings are the thing of the hour. So they got to have John Moxley. And you are absolutely right. He could have sold the beat down. But the fact is that they were coming here, the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega, to, we'll say, quote unquote, promote the pay-per-view Hard to Kill of Impact Wrestling, which is this week. So they had John Moxley, who is the arch rival of Kenny Omega, to be present there. So that is, it was necessary, whatever. So right now, what we can conclude is that Moxley wants Omega as he was screwed out of the title picture, and Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. came to the aid of Moxley. Locker room also, emptied out. Young Bucks came out to calm Moxley, possibly as executive vice presidents or just for the sake of it. Lucha Bros dropped the Young Bucks with a couple of super kicks, as you said, as they have a long storied rivalry which dates back to the start of the promotion, AW, and also possibly, who would think that the Bucks aren't with the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega after their photo op last week, which ended the show? Who would think otherwise? I wouldn't.
Maybe
So,
they There is still uncertainty with the Bucks if they should join or not.
Yes. Or if they have, and this is just a whole charade, and they are messing with Tony Khan also. So whatever it is, many interesting developments made that possibly, you know, the Young Bucks would be feuding with Lucha Bros for the tag team championship. And we also learned about that SCU would also be gunning for the tag team championship, a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And now with the Inner Circle challenge, we would be having another team who would be gunning for the tag team championship. So a lot of stuff with regards to the tag team championship. It's great. Looking forward to it that what is happening with regards to the Young Bucks and who would be taking the title off of them as soon as possible.
Up next, we had the dynamite debut of the waiting room. So Reba welcomes us to the show until introducing Dr. Britt Baker. So Baker said to the people in attendance that there was a surprise underneath their seats. Actually, there was nothing, as she was just messing around. She talks about their guest Cody Rhodes and plugs in his new show, Go Home Big Show, if I'm not wrong. So she said that the judges on the show, no, sorry, she said that Cody Rhodes is the only non-celebrity judge in this show. They then finally introduce Cody as they bring in sparkling sticks. So Baker then said there's
Full
another
jadis.
surprise guest. It's actually Jade Cargill. So she comes in, she snatches the mic from Cody. She said her and Shaq are tired of waiting as she wants an opponent. So Cargill shows Cody. So Red Velvet shows up and went face to face with Cargill as they start exchanging slaps. So bunch of wrestlers then separate the two as Baker is still filming this on her phone. So uh, after all this situation is cleared, they randomly show a footage of Thunder Rosa being attacked by Britt Baker. So Thunder Rosa appears on the screen and she breaks us the news that Tony Khan has signed Baker versus Rosa at Beach Break. So that was the entire segment.
It was a good segment, you know. Jade Cargill looked like a beast. It looked like she could fight Cody.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the same thing I was thinking about. So you can't have Shaq versus Cody just like that. How about a intergender wrestling traction? Cody versus Jade Cargill. Like Jade Cargill is someone that is actually believable.
hmm. But yeah, the thing with modern day wrestling, or you can say mainstream wrestling, intergender matches do not go there. That it is just, you can say, not believable enough. You can have intergender matches, in independent companies and stuff like that. But in mainstream, it doesn't happen. They have tried, Impact Wrestling tried with the storyline of Tessa Blanchard versus Sammy Callahan, and it was great with regards to it. But nonetheless, the mindset of the people, the mindset of the casual viewer, you wouldn't go there. So rather than losing your audience or risking what is already established, so just go with what is there. So just get Jade Cargill a female opponent, even when it looks like that she is a fucking beast and Red Velvet looks like nothing in front of her. They were trading slabs. It looked like she could fucking kill her. with one blow. But
So there you
nonetheless,
go. They are building up Jade Cargill versus Red Velvet, which
yes,
somewhat is a big feud for Red Velvet, and she could get some shine after that.
yes, and it is great that they addressed this feud of Cody and Shaq after a long time, and Velvet was aligned with Brandy, so they can use her to further this feud. Shaq and Cody indirectly as well, and it was a great promo, or you can say by Jade Cargill, and she looked confident and she didn't look like she could be messed around on the microphone. And it was also great that we got that what the fuck is happening with regards to Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker's feud. So now it is said that Beach Break February 3rd we would be having this bout. And Thunder Rose also, cut an intense promo, which is great. And she is great on the microphone. That is also very well established. It does not happen, or she is not given an opportunity in the ring to cut a promo. But whatever we have seen with regards to on social media, with regards to taped promos, or even backstage, she can do it on the microphone.
But we have to say that the MVP of this entire segment was Britt Baker. And the
Yes,
concept of her just burying her guest on this show is just amazing. And I would
yes.
like to see more of this when they do get a chance. I want to see more of this waiting room segments on Dynamite rather than Dark.
Yes, of course. We would be seeing it, and now with the possibility of a second show, we would definitely be seeing it either on this show or the second show.
So yeah, from that we get to Jurassic Express versus FTR. It was Marco Stunt who was replacing Luchasaurus. They came out to Jungle Boys. Speaking about buying, so they came out to Jungle Boy's new theme song. It's Tarzan Boy, which was a gift from Tony Khan because he bought the rights of this song. So that's pretty cool. So story of this match was FTR wanted to hurt Marco Stunt, which they did with every chance they got. So Marco Stunt did his usual spots. Jungle Boy was Jungle Boy in this match. We saw the involvement of Tully Blanchard at the end. So FTR win with the Goodnight Express on Marco Stunt, which they have
On
renamed to Big Rig in honor of Brody Lee. So what did you
yes,
think about this match?
I think this match was, can say, fine. What was expected of this match, that this was not, above or under. With the story was that Marco Stunt got manipulated to participate in this match. He is a hothead. We are made to believe that, and take the place of Luchasaurus. In the first half of the bout, it was back and forth action. FTR took control of Marco Stunt uh, until Jungle Boy joined in. And then we saw some shitty double team maneuvers from Jurassic Duo, which didn't look like that it can hurt fucking anyone. But FTR got to sell for them, of course, because it is a match. And they did. The offense ended with a tope suicida by Marco, which looked like that it hurt. Kudos to him. And a quebrada, which was a moonsault by Jungle Boy on the outside. Then we went to a commercial break. It was great. And then Jungle Boy got a great offense, as he should. Now he has got new entrance music, and now possibly the promotion is now investing in him, and possibly now he could be a center of attraction in the coming weeks or in the coming months. for the
That
promotion. So,
that theme song is already over.
so that is great. That is great. And he wiped out FTR, whole of them, at one point, and he really shined. But he couldn't get a victory for his team. Tully, as you said, gave dividends as he posted Marco stunt, and then behind referee's back, of course, for FTR to end this bout. FTR won the bout via pinning the Jurassic Ragdoll Marco stunt with the big rig. It is great. Now we have to see that what's next with regards to FTR also. They said that they won the tag team championship, but right now they were, you know, messing with Jurassic Express. Now possibly they would be fighting the this team, and Luchasaurus would be involved.
Yes, yes, yes.
That would be the next course of action.
They just have FTR to do something else because they eventually will be coming back for those tag team titles.
Yes.
So we have the NWA Women's Championship match: Serena Deeb versus Ty Conti. So Deeb started clean here as Conti tried to out wrestle her. So submissions attempt from Deeb throughout this match. Conti with several pump kicks. So final part of the match saw Conti going for the tie KO, but Deep counters and hits the detox for the win, and that was it. It was actually a really good match, and I have to say this is the best that Ty Conti has ever looked. And Serena Deep can have a good match with anybody. What did you think about this championship bout?
Yes, I also thought that this was a, this was a great match. And with regards to this was a, you know, wrestling bout, and it was only back and forth on the mat. Nothing else. They didn't have any, flips and flams, as Jericho says, the conspiracy theorist. And and it also had a sort of, you can say, a teacher student dynamic, I guess, because as someone from the commentary, I guess JR said that Serena was there as a trainer when Tayanara or Ty Conti was starting to learn the ropes, I guess, at the WWE Performance Center.
Yes, yes, you're right. Absolutely right.
So it's great that that was also the underlying story. And uh, Ty Conti has got an opportunity, as you can say, has got this opportunity, you know, fighting for a championship, the NWA Women's Championship, as we are riding a feel good moment because of the untimely passing of Brody Lee, the leader of the Dark Order. And there was a moment of, I guess, the first one. The powerful high pump kick by Tainara Conti was amazing. And Serena Deeb also, sold it like $1 million. She just, threw herself to the outside and just, you know, uh, she just fucking placed herself face down. So that is great that you are selling for the other, you know, uh, person, that is one of her signature maneuvers, the high pump kick of Tainara Conti. So it is great. And great. It was a great competitive bout, as expected. In such scenarios, when we are now, you can say, used to, so to speak, seeing NWA Women's Championship bouts. So now we are used to. that what should we expect in such bouts, that it would be more of wrestling and less of character and shenanigans, so to speak. So with regards to that, it was great, and there was a lot of submissions and roll ups, as you just said, back and forth, a desire to outdo each other that was seen between the two competitors, even when one was a teacher and the other was a student. It's great. Serena won via pinfall with the detox. Great. She can elevate, as you say, any talent which we are seeing, and that is possibly her role right now in AEW, and that would help the women's division of AEW. So it is great.
Wished we had at least two more Serena Deeps in this division. We already have Thunder Rosa, but we need some more veterans. I was thinking about maybe Mickey James.
That would be great,
We
without doubt.
Mickey James, maybe Melina.
Mm. Melina, isn't she now in WWE?
Last I heard, she isn't in on any WWE contract.
She is not.
Mickey James is there in a Legends contract, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
But
that's
she
that.
was, but she is not in a very, you can say, a good, mindset with regards to that promotion. Whenever she in her current run, she was just losing like shit, as far as I can remember. Uh, in her last run, which was currently, she was losing, and then the fans were on social media. I only, remember the fans' reaction that she is so talented, then why the fuck are you fucking with her storyline, and why are you not letting her win and building momentum and stuff like that. I
Li-
don't know.
li- Listen, bro. Nobody is in a great mindset in WWE. Everyone wants to leave. If so, there's a rumor that Ricochet might leave the company this month.
Hmm. The thing is that there are many things which let you be employed at any place. So that is up to your mindset, that what fulfills you. That is, either it is your you know happiness or emotional fulfillment, or it is money. Though if it is money, that you are getting money and you are able to fulfill your daily needs and even your comfort, so then possibly you would be in WWE. But then there are two scenarios, that when you are just starting and you get a job at WWE, so you would possibly just go in there, hands and legs, jump in at the opportunity. And when because it is about the money and you need the money, of course, and it is a great opportunity. It is one of the biggest, if not the biggest company in terms of professional wrestling in the world. And when you care more about the happiness or emotional fulfillment, and uh, even if you have made a ton of money there, and now you want that you should have a peace of mind and emotional fulfillment, then you go somewhere else, possibly Impact Wrestling or AEW or Ring of Honor, or maybe any other company, or maybe scour the independent scene, or maybe New Japan Pro Wrestling, wherever. So it is up to you, and it is up to your mindset. I would not even say that someone is wrong being employed at WWE, or even someone is right or someone is wrong being employed at AEW. No, it is up to you know your mindset and what fulfills you at a certain point. Possibly today you are great with WWE. Possibly in the near future you would be in AEW. That is up to you. Sorry for this long, you know,
Let's see. There is a rumor that many people will be leaving the company this year. So, the-
possibly. Everybody is looking for, opportunity and emotional fulfillment, of course. And now, if Ricochet is not, being utilized, or maybe he is not happy at the end of the day, for me, I would say that it is about happiness. So if he's not happy with the way that he's being utilized and stuff like that, so possibly he would jump, and he should, because he was a great, he had a great presence when he was in Lucha Underground, and even when he was in the independent circuit, he also, competed in New Japan. So what the fuck happened here? It is all about, possibly some people say that it is about mic skills, that he doesn't have it. That is why that he is in the position that he is. But the other people who are, you know, quote unquote experts, not quote unquote experts, the experts, not quote unquote experts, the experts, maybe good minds of wrestling, they say that if you have a talent like Ricochet or maybe someone else, you should accentuate his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. That is what makes you a great promoter or a great company, owner, so to speak. So why would you make that guy hold a microphone? No, either give him a manager or put him in such situations that he doesn't need to hold a microphone. Give him, things, or put him in such situations that he is able to translate to the audience, or get the fans invested in himself via his wrestling skills, or maybe the stuff that he does in, segments that the other person is talking. The other person talks a lot, he talks a lot of shit. The Ricochet does some stuff, and he, gets the reaction. That is up to the creative. That is up to the creative. That is what they are paid for.
by the way, Ricochet could make a great TNT champion. Just saying.
Yeah. So why not?
Speaking about the TNT Championship, we had the main event here. So Darby Allin was defending the TNT Championship against Brian Cage. Nothing much here. This was an attempted murder on live TV. Good match or not, that's up for debate. Darby Allin was literally a crash test dummy here. So it started with Allen doing several suicide dives. So Cage catches Allen and it's a suplex. So at one point, Cage presses up Allen and launches him from the ring to the unknown table. What?
Killed him.
So Allen got busted open here. Cage is ragdolling Allen inside the ring. Several power bombs, including one on the stage. So Allen was kicking out at one after Page had done hitting his big moves, which was little unnecessary, I guess.
it, uh,
Um,
it was, you can say, it was fueling to the story that he has, dealt with bullies throughout his life, and he has the resilience and the heart, and he never quits, never say die attitude. That is what, that was the story with the kicking out at one.
so we see Cage introducing steel steps, which was his downfall actually, as Allen sent him into the steps. And now Allen also hit a coffin drop on the steps. And at the end, Ricky Stocks got involved until lights go out and it's Sting. He uses the bat on Starks. Final part of the match saw Cage and Allen at the top. So Allen hit a cradle bomb for the win, which was actually a callback to Cody pinning Allen a while back. So that was that. What did you think about this match?
Yeah, I thought that what uh, they were trying to tell the story, it was just a story. As you said, it was live murder on live television. Yes, I would agree. And it was the part of the story that Brian Cage was the quote unquote possibly the bully, and Darby Allin has dealt with such people throughout his life, and you know, never say die attitude. We saw his resilience, his heart, that whatever he threw at him, he ate it all up, and he never gave up. And at the end, with the crucifix bomb, he pinned him, and it was a callback, as you said, to to uh, the point that when Darby tried to pin Cody with the crucifix and couldn't hold him, getting pinned himself. Then what happened that Taz confronted him, and Taz said that what he did wrong, I know that I can offer you some training and I can help you that what you did wrong there. So Darby said that I know what I did wrong and I do not need your help. And then Taz took it personally.
Now that's what you call storytelling.
Yes. And then at the end of this bout, Darby Allin showed that now he did the crucifix bomb correctly, and showing Taz that he did know what he did wrong and he did it correctly. So it was long-term storyline. Yes, I also got to know about this whole scenario on Reddit. There was a screenshot. So it is brilliant storytelling. I would give full marks to whoever were involved in this. You know, salute. And
So
with also with regards to this match, it was also this was also a part that there was 100 pound weight difference. So that also came into play, of course, with Darby Allin being ragdolled by Brian Cage. Darby Allin had the athleticism and the carefree attitude with regards to his health and well-being. Cage had the strength, the size, the athleticism, but he didn't show any athleticism. That he looks like a heavyweight, but he moves like a cruiserweight, but there was nothing. He showed his strength and he beat up Darby Allin like anything. The military press, as you said, from the inside to the outside on to the table was like fucking holy shit moment. It was like fuck, he just killed him. And will he stand up or will he not? We do not know. It was wholly a one-sided affair till the start of the commercial break. It was quite reminiscent of the Cena Brock match from SummerSlam, which was Suplex City Bitch. Basically, Taz said that Darby, says and parrots the thing that he likes pain, so we are giving him to it. Basically, what are we doing wrong? We are just giving him what he likes. In Darby, as we just discussed, that Darby has been dealing with bullies his entire life, as he said in his last week's The Way In. So if he wins tonight, that was the story that it would be a sense of vindication against all those who doubted him and said he's a fucking pissant or a God Spike Dudley. God Spike Dudley was said by Matthew. Botchamania. So shout out to him. Nothing else. So Darby kicking out at one, as you just said, that after eating a ton of offense, showed his heart and resilience. Sting intervened when Starks tried to affect the outcome in the favor of his teammate Cage. Understandable, of course. He wants his teammate to win. A crucifix bomb from the top rope out of nowhere sealed the deal for Darby Allin, still TNT champion. Darby Allin.
Let's talk about Sting. So he finally got physical in AEW, laid his hands on one of the members of Team Taz. Now Team Taz should really go after Sting because all these weeks that Sting was just interrupting them. Now it's personal, quote unquote.
Hmm. So would we be seeing a tag match?
No, I don't. That's secondary. Let's go after Sting first. Maybe who
Okay.
knows? Brankage picks up Sting for a buckle bomb.
Ooh, you went there, huh?
That's called storytelling, pal. Okay, so it was not actually that bad, man. Come on, it was not actually that bad. So let's backtrack a little bit. Overall, that was Dynamite.
Yes, that was
Uh,
dynamite.
so before we leave, where can these guys find you?
Guys, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Abimaniac, ABBYMANIAC. And I'm currently working with an independent wrestling promotion called Wrestle Square as a commentator only. Now I have been fired from the position of general manager last week. So it is up to you. If you want, you can. If you don't, please don't. Subscribe to their YouTube channel at Wrestle Square. It is up to you. If I were you, I would not. But still, I am plugging this in for the sake of me being a good human being. That's it.
Did you get a call from Cody Rhodes?
Not yet.
Let's see. You can find Slam of Wrestling on Twitter at Slam of W, Instagram at Slam of Wrestling. Our podcast and reviews are mainly. Um, if you don't want to see this review on the YouTube app, you can catch this podcast and reviews on the audio app, just for example, Spotify and Anchor. And we'll see you guys next time.